Good morning. My name is Carrie Ray Barnum. I am the Executive Director of New Shelves Books, and we're here for Free Advice Friday. That hour every Friday where we get together to talk about book marketing, publishing, anything really having to do in the market today as an author, a writer, and a publisher. And we do take questions live if you join us at newshelves.com/FAF. And we also accept emailed in questions. You can email us at info at newshelves.com, and we will answer them live, and you can watch the replay on YouTube, which is simply youtube.com/newshelvesbooks. Today we've kind of got a mix of both. We've got questions live and we got emails. So let's jump in with a few live questions and see what we get into today. Cheryl, good morning. When running an Amazon ad, is it better to run one ad selecting both the print and ebook, or run the same ad separately for these two formats? Cheryl, that is a great question and something that is sometimes debated. So some people will say that if you run the paperback and ebook separate, that they will actually be fighting each other for keywords and for bids. So there's that thought. But also the idea that sometimes certain keywords may do better for an ebook than they would for paperback. And also you may be willing to spend a little bit more on one ad or the other, depending on how much your royalty or payout is per book. So I've done it both ways where you do both. Sometimes I will run an ad both ways to see which one takes off first. And then I stop that ad, start a new ad that focuses and kind of pulls out the keywords based on what was generating sales for that first ad. So it's really up to you. I will say that it's typically a different audience. So the way that books are shown and ads are shown is that if you are more likely to buy a paperback book when you're in your Amazon account and you're searching for something, Amazon is more likely, because of their really smart algorithms, to show you paperback books and take you to that sales page instead of to ebooks. So if you're only advertising an ebook and you're not doing both, or you're not doing separate ads for both, what can happen is you're missing an audience altogether because Amazon's showing them paperbacks because that's what they tend to order. So that's something to consider for sure. I would, again, maybe start running with both and then split out. But if you've got a really good sense of your books to start from, you can always split from the beginning. But as with many things in marketing, and I don't remember who, Letha, I was talking to a children's book author today, and I was telling her, the thing about marketing is a lot of it is theory and guesses, but then we don't really know how it'll work and how it'll work for your book particularly until we try it out. And so I'm a big fan of strategic trying. We don't want to just throw spaghetti at the wall. No, but kind of brainstorming, coming up with ideas, and then just trying things out to see what works. And then once we find that, we snowball it from there and we really hone in. And that's what I would suggest in this case, is that if you've already had some ads doing both, try some split out ads where you're just running for ebook and you're just running for paperback. And you may find that certain keywords, for example, I've seen in some ads that paperbacks tend to sometimes have older comp titles because people reading in paperback sometimes are maybe a little bit of a more senior reader, a little bit older of a reader, whereas ebooks tend to be to a younger audience. So sometimes I've seen that happen, and you might be surprised of what happens for you. I would also, as a little tip, when you're looking at your comps and you're looking at your keywords, go to your comps, your big name comps, and look at their rankings for the different formats. You will find in some formats that their books sell really well in ebook or audiobook, but these big names are not selling in paperback, or they're selling a ton in paperback, not in ebook. So that is also a tip off of how you should be advertising your book. I was looking at a comp with someone just the other day, and this person had, they had like thousands of reviews, tons of sales. They were on the bestseller list for their audiobook. But when we looked at their paperback, that book ranking was in the millions. That tells me that the audience for this book isn't necessarily reading a lot of paperbacks, but they are crazy about ebooks and audiobooks. So that kind of makes sense as far as tailoring your ads towards that audience. So those are the kinds of things you want to think about and look at. I know, looking at it by format, it's just a different way to look at things. And I think that it can definitely work. So give it a try. All right, Beth, I'd like to publish an audiobook, and yet when I spoke with a representative from ACX this week, I have to tie the audiobook to a print version on Amazon. Is there another way to publish audio without a printed book? There sure is. Beth, I recommend that you go to Findaway Voices. Findawayvoices.com is a audiobook system, much like ACX, that can get your book into Amazon. They can get your book into iBooks and Barnes & Noble and all the places. And you actually can retain more rights, be non-exclusive. They also have narrators there that you can interview and find. So I would recommend that you consider, if ACX is not a good fit, I recommend you go over to Findaway Voices and look there. You may also want to look at, what is it? Authors Republic. That's what it is. So I would go to Findaway Voices first. Personally, let me see if I can pull up that link for you. Findaway Voices. I think it's findawayvoices.com, but I would hate to say that and then realize I was wrong. It is. It's findawayvoices.com. All righty. You bet, Beth. All right. How do you feel about doing the free book promo on KDP in the pre-launch? Well, it wouldn't necessarily be in the pre-launch. The book has to be live in order to be free on KDP. So it'd have to be after the book was live. But how do I feel about free book promotions? I think that free book promotions can be great if you have strategy behind it. I have seen people, I talked to someone I think just last week who was like, well, I did a free ebook promotion and I got like 30 downloads. I got 2 reviews, but it didn't really do anything. So why would you tell me to do another one? But they weren't really maximizing that free ebook promotion. So if you're on Kindle Unlimited, you have the option of putting your ebook free for up to 5 days in a 90-day period. And the way that I personally would use that is for a couple of reasons. If it's a new book and you're trying to get reviews, the best way to get more reviews is to get more readers. So sometimes giving your book away for free in the beginning can be a great way just to generate buzz, to get readers, to get reviews. The thing is if I just put my book up for free on Amazon and I don't do anything to promote it, who's going to see it? Maybe 3 people, 4, I don't know. It's not really going to get out there because I haven't marketed that. So if you're going to use this strategy, I think it's really important that you maximize those free days by using discount and free newsletters to reach an audience outside of your reach. Places like Free Booksy, The Fussy Librarian, the Robbins Reads, Book Cave. These are all places that you can go to for discount ebook promotions because they have bigger audiences and you can stack on top of that so you reach more readers. And that can be very effective in getting into a lot of hands. Now, many estimations in the industry say that the average reader doesn't leave a review unless you ask them to. Now, that is changing a little bit with Kindle because Kindle does have the option to just rate now and not necessarily review, but it's still something that not everyone does. And so approximately maybe 10% of the people who download a free copy will go on to review or even read that book if it's free. So keep that in mind when you're looking at reach. You could have 5,000 downloads and you might get 500 people who actually read it. And then out of those, maybe 100 will review it. Maybe 100 will review it. So just put your expectations in line. Now, if this is a standalone book and you're putting it up for free, I think you really have to consider, if you're putting it up for free, if you are doing that and you're sending that out to your audience, the people that you've been marketing to, they're going to get a free book and they're not going to buy your book. So if you're looking at the cost of it, if you're looking at trying to get sales and you're putting your book up for free, everyone's going to go get it for free. They're not going to pay for it. So that doesn't make sense, especially with a standalone, because there's nothing for you to make money on. Like if it was a series, if it was a 3-book series and you do a freebie on book 1 because book 3 is coming out, well, then you can sell book 2 and book 3 or get page reads through it. And that's where you make your money. I've done that effectively with many series. And I think it's a great way to get new readers into a series, but that is a loss leader. And then book 2 and book 3 are where you make your money. So again, you have to have strategy behind it. This is a standalone book and you're doing that. Are you losing sales because you are immediately offering the book for free to your list who would buy it from you? That's something to consider. Sometimes you can kind of quietly put this book up. You can put it up and out and do a freebie for a day or two, and then you put it up for sale, and that's when you market it. So that you can kind of get people who weren't in your reach to get it for free, who might review it, and then you can still market to your audience. But you have to be very careful about that, because you don't want your audience who trusts you to feel like they didn't get what people who don't even know you got. So you do have to be a little careful about that. All things to consider. Again, it always comes back to what are your goals, not only as an author, but for this book and for this promotion, and what is the strategy you're putting into to make sure that you're getting the most out of this. If you're going to give your book away for free, if you're going to spend $100 or $200 to promote that, to get more people to read it, what are you hoping to get out of it, and how can you maximize that? So it's totally about strategy, as well as your goals. And that's what I would be looking at when you consider a free promotion for a book. Let's see. What criteria do you use to pick the look inside pages on Amazon? Look inside pages are actually automatic. You can request certain pages, but typically it's just automatic. And it actually pulls a random sample on Amazon. It does up to 10% of a book. If it is a smaller picture book, it tends to do about 5%. And so you can request changes from Amazon, but the automatic look inside is 10%, and it's random pages. And it's not always the same pages for different people. I can look at something and they'll show me 10% of random pages. You can look at it, it'll be different. It does always show the very beginning, the copyright, and all of that kind of stuff. All right, let me dive into a couple of our emails here. This one is from Meredith. So Meredith, I loved the discussion last week about how much time new authors should budget for their first book. Yeah, we talked about that 2 weeks ago. And Meredith here is thinking first about publishing on Kindle Vella. Now, Kindle Vella is the serialized platform of Kindle. So you release little parts of a story or chapters, and you release them kind of in succession, and it can be a good way to build an audience. And the plan is to publish a completed series so readers would not have to fear the story would languish unfinished. Do you have any advice for new authors who publish specifically to that platform? So I will say the Kindle Vella platform is fairly new. It came out last July, so it's been out just over a year. Some people have had great success, some people not as much, just kind of goes up and down. I think serialized fiction has a special reader for it, and someone who wants to read little bits often. Now, the problem that I've always seen with Kindle Vella is that Kindle Vella does charge the person who's reading, whereas there are options like Wattpad that are free. So there is a little bit of competition. And I think when, as Kindle Vella has been out just for a year, I saw quite a few articles talking about how it was working, but it wasn't as successful as some people hoped and predicted in the beginning. And I do think that's wise, because people don't necessarily want to pay for that serialized fiction when they've been trained to get it for free from places like Wattpad. So that's a consideration. However, I do think Kindle Vella can be a really great way to put a book out and build an audience. And the thing with that, and I was talking to someone about this at the conference last week, is that you can use Kindle Vella as a way to build your audience, to release a series, build up audience, and yeah, maybe you'll make some money along the way, which is awesome. I recommend Kindle Vella, it has to be exclusive to Kindle Vella. This cannot be published anywhere else, including on Kindle or Kindle Unlimited. It has to be exclusive. So if you're going to do Kindle Vella and you're going to put it exclusive there at first, once the whole series is out, many authors will choose to take that series down and then publish it to Kindle Unlimited, or even go wide with it and publish the series as a whole, quick launch, quick release. And I think that that can be a really great way to kind of get two sets of readers and possibly have readers follow you over. However, if you're hoping to convert your audience from Kindle Vella to books, I think you have to be really smart about it. So I have two things to say about that. If you're doing Kindle Vella and you're developing a readership, make sure that you are doing something to email capture, that you are getting their information so that you can actually capitalize on that when you go to publishing full books. I would also say that if you're hoping to get your audience to go from Kindle Vella to Kindle, you probably want to look into publishing with Kindle Unlimited, which is a subscription model on Kindle, so that that audience typically is going to traipse right over. I would also say that if you're going to take the same content that you put on Kindle Vella and you plan to publish it anywhere else, I don't care if it's wide or on Kindle Unlimited, if you plan to publish it anywhere else, what I strongly recommend you do is you take that original content and you add something new, whether it be a new prologue, a new epilogue, a whole new chapter. I recommend, especially if you're hoping to get people from one platform to another, that you give them incentive. They have to have a reason to want to follow you to a new platform. They have to have a reason to want to download your book on Kindle Unlimited when they've already read it on Kindle Vella. So what incentive are you going to give them? Are they going to get a juicy new story, a new alternate ending? Think of it that way, because then that is how you get people who are raving fans over on Kindle Vella to go download it on Kindle Unlimited, to go download it, go through the pages, read the new content, and leave you reviews there. So these are things to consider. Again, it's a really long-term strategy, and I think it can work for you, but think where you want to end up a year from now. Because if you just start putting things out on Kindle Vella without a plan, I've seen that you build on Kindle Vella and you do what you do, then you take it down, and then you're building from scratch on Kindle Unlimited or on going wide. So think through that and make sure that you've got a really strong plan for how you're going to take it through. I personally don't know of any authors, I don't know of any authors who are making a living on Kindle Vella. I know some people who are doing fairly well. They get some of their income from there, but I don't know anyone personally that is actually making a living on Kindle Vella. So take that as you will. And that's just anecdotal for sure. There may be people making a living there, but you know, again, your goals and the strategy behind it. All right. I love this question. When can I stop trying to get reviews? Never, my friends, never. We never stop working for reviews. There is never a magic number where you go, wow, I've got a lot of reviews. I can just stop asking. Because getting reviews and getting regular reviews helps our Amazon algorithms. Studies have actually been shown that Amazon does favor books that have reviews and that get rated or reviewed regularly. So whether you've got 20 reviews or 2,000 reviews, you always want to be asking for reviews. And that can be as simple as putting something at the end of your book that says, if you enjoyed this story, please leave a review online. Please leave a reader review. Please rate the book. But you have to ask. We rarely get things we don't ask for. So we've got to put the ask out there, whether that be in reader groups or a reminder, you know, thanks so much for making my book such a success. And it's 1 year anniversary. I've been so supported by you. Just a reminder, if you've read the book and you haven't reviewed it yet, please consider doing that. it doesn't, we're not like yelling at people, but yeah, you ask them again, you follow up, and you ask your new readers, because reviews, you can never have too many reviews, right? Like Stephen King has a book with like 17,000 reviews. He could still use a few more. It's looking a little light, Stephen. But obviously kidding, but he could still use more, because of course we want new things. We don't want our last review to be from 2015, because you know what that tells the person who goes to our book page? That tells them, this book peaked, oh my gosh, 7 years ago. I had to look at my calendar to see how long that had been. So I think that's certainly something we always work towards. Now, I personally, my personal experience and my rule is I do not run ads for a book that has less than 15 reviews. So I do think that you need to have that social proof and that trust before you run ads that really convert well. So 15 reviews minimum, but also you need at least 50 reviews for Amazon to include your book in email marketing. So sometimes they'll make recommendations of books and things like that. And it's all done by bots. This is not, this is not someone going, oh, I like this book today, and I think I'll take this book. It's bots. But one of the criteria is you have to have at least 50 ebook review or 50 reviews before they do that. So always keep reaching, always keep asking. You can't have too many reviews. It's like having too many compliments. Please, anytime anyone wants to say something nice, please say it. Let's see. Yes, you still have to ask, and you can ask in a friendly and comfortable way. Like, it's not like go leave a review now or else. Although that may work for some people. I don't highly recommend that in general. Definitely put those reminders out there. The question on pricing: do you put fixed prices on the ISBNs you buy at Bowker for both print and hardcover and softcover? Do you need ISBN for ebook? Can you put a $19.99 ISBN price on a hardback and then lower it on Amazon to $9.99? Ooh, these are good questions. And pricing must be hot on people's minds, because I have talked to someone else about this today. So let's talk about fair trade law. Fair trade law says that the wholesaler or the wholesaler, the original place the product is coming from. So in your case, if you're self-publishing, the publisher must set a trade price, and they must offer it to all retailers at that price, not giving one retailer an advantage over the other. So I get this question all the time. Can I put my book up on Ingram Spark for $19.99 because I earn less there, and then sell it for $12.99 on Amazon because I want to be competitively priced, but I make less money at Ingram Spark, so I've got to hike my prices up? And the short answer is no. That is literally against the law. It's against fair trade law, because when doing that, you automatically are giving Amazon the leg up on sales over other retailers. So do sometimes indie authors or small publishers do it and get away with it? Yes, because they're small enough that they're not getting lawyers crawling all over them. However, it's still not best practice, and it still is technically illegal. According to fair trade law, there was I believe it was in the 1970s, actually. There was a big case about it. I don't remember all the details. You can go look it up, but it was all about what the original creator offers to different retailers and wholesalers. So we can offer wholesale discounts that go to the retailers, but our list price must be our list price. With that said, if we put a list price of $19.99 on our book and the retailer chooses to run a discount and earn less profit, they choose to cut into their own profit to put a product. Let's say it's I don't know, an air fryer. Well, if I have the same list price for an air fryer at Kohl's and at Target, and Target decides to run a Black Friday deal and list that air fryer for 20 bucks less, that is their prerogative, and they're allowed to do that as the retailer. But you, as the publisher, are not allowed to give them a leg up by setting a different list price. So those are kind of, it's, look, it's not me, it's the law. But that's best practice. And that's what I personally stick to. I know other people, especially in indie and self-publishing groups, especially on Facebook, will say otherwise. And you make your own decisions for sure based on your beliefs and what you stand for. But I stick to a list price that is set on all retailers. And that's my advice. As far as discounts, can you discount your book? Like, can you discount your ebook? Sure you can, but you need to discount it pretty much on all platforms, because that's kind of how it goes. So you discount your ebook, run a promotion, put it back up. To the first question about ISBNs. Let's see. Could someone offer, say, a hardcover on Ingram and a paperback on Amazon at different prices? Sure you could, Kevin, because those are two different formats. So you can offer a paperback and a hardcover and have different prices. And you, just because you list it on Amazon doesn't mean you have to offer it to other retailers. It's just that you have the same product. You need to have the same pricing. So you can absolutely put a hardcover on Ingram and have it at a higher price, and then have a lower priced book on paperback on Amazon. Absolutely, that's within your rights. As far as ISBNs, in the US, we get our ISBNs from Bowker. Now, if you live in Canada, you go over to your government, you get them for free, which is super awesome. And other places have different rules. UK does Bowker from the UK, so just different options. But yes, I highly recommend that you get your own ISBNs, and you need one ISBN per format. So when I say format, what does that mean? Paperback, hardcover, ebook, audiobook. And yes, I do recommend that you use an ISBN for each of those formats. Now, I know there, again, depending on where you're coming from and what chat groups you've been in, I know there's a lot of talk that ebooks don't need ISBNs. And that is because if you're only doing Amazon, if you're putting your book on Amazon and you plan on doing Kindle Select, which is opting into the Kindle Unlimited program, which means your ebook is exclusive on Amazon. It's only listed on Amazon. Amazon doesn't even use the ISBN. They use an ASIN, a Amazon Standard Identification Number. So if you're doing exclusive on Amazon, technically you don't really need an ISBN because you won't be using it. However, it is best practice to still assign your ebook an ISBN, because what if you take your book out of Kindle Unlimited at some point? What if you want to make it go wide so you can get into Overdrive for libraries, or you want to get into Baker and Taylor, or Baker and Taylor for libraries, Barnes and Noble, whatever it may be. So it's still best practice to assign your ebook a ISBN, again, that you own. But technically, if you are going into the Kindle Unlimited program and you will not be using an ISBN for your ebook because of that, because it will be Amazon and Kindle exclusive, technically you can put it up there without an ISBN. So again, always your call. An ISBN, I typically buy, actually, Nearselves has like 5,000. But if you are buying ISBNs, typically I recommend that people buy a pack of 10, and it's about $300. So you're paying about 30 bucks per ISBN. So if that 30 bucks is really cost prohibitive for you and you're going into Kindle Unlimited, you may choose not to use an ISBN. And if you are self-publishing, then that is your call. You are the boss. So I can certainly give my opinion, but ultimately it's your call. Let's see. And then if we're doing Kindle Vella, then a later a full book wide, 2 different ISBNs. That is a really good question, Diane. I haven't actually looked into that or seen that, but I can't imagine that you would be using ISBNs on Kindle Vella, because you kind of release as individual stories. So I can't imagine that you would use an ISBN for each release. So I imagine that doesn't actually matter, that you would just release on Kindle Vella with no ISBN, and then you'd use it when putting your whole book out. That's a really good question, though. I haven't seen that one before. Yes, and Cheryl says libraries need our books. Seems worth the ISBN price if possible to make them available to readers who may not be able to buy. I agree. I think the Kindle Unlimited system is really great for some people. And I have clients who they're making a living on Kindle Unlimited. So I'm not going to bash that. But I do think that if we have the opportunity or we want to reach libraries, I think having a wide distribution and having the opportunity to go wide to libraries is definitely of value. And depending on the book genre, some book genres do really, really well wide. Some don't do as well wide. They do better on Kindle Unlimited. So like, I keep wanting to call it egg crime, and I don't know why, because it's hard boiled. This is how my mind works. It's a scary place. So hard boiled crime is and noir crime tends to do really, really well in wide. It tends to do really well in Kobo, and it tends to do well outside of the US market. So people who have hard-boiled crime, I usually say go wide, even though mystery is so hot on Kindle Unlimited. If you have cozy mysteries, I think it can be great, but hard-boiled crime or crime fiction in general can do really well wide. So sometimes your book will actually sell better outside of Kindle Unlimited than it would in Kindle Unlimited. So it's all about looking at your books, in particular, your strategy, and moving on from there to see what will work best for you. All right, back to an emailed question. Nope, not that one. I answered that one. Yes, someone had asked about BookFunnel has kind of been talking about the new changes. So BookFunnel, as you all may know, BookFunnel is a program that I personally recommend for you to list your books for review. It's a hosting site to deliver ebooks if you have like a lead generator and different things like that. We do, if you go to our YouTube, we have some videos specific to BookFunnel, so I won't dive into that too much. But BookFunnel has announced that they now have some updates. And so a quick recap of those is BookFunnel now is offering ebook samples. So when you put a ebook up on BookFunnel, because you can sell through BookFunnel, you can just use it for lead gen and emails, but you can also list and sell your books through BookFunnel. Like if you're doing it for your website, you can direct them to BookFunnel and sell it direct. So that is an option. And they now are allowing you to set up ebook samples where you can pick a sample for like a look inside, which is kind of fun. They're now also offering visible watermarks. They have had watermarks on their delivered files for a really long time. So they have for a very long time had the option of having watermarks, and they put those right in the file, but now they're having the option for visible watermarks, you know, do not copy, advanced reader copy, copyright by, whatever it is. So you can make sure that if you want a more prominent watermark, that's now an option. And then the third thing that's really interesting that BookFunnel is doing is bulk delivery. So as Kickstarter, Patreon, and different things have become really, they've become more popular, what BookFunnel has done is they're now offering bulk delivery. So you can send a big number of ebooks and audiobooks to a number of different readers. So if you were doing a Kickstarter and one of your what am I trying to say? If one of your rewards is the audiobook, you can now mass bulk deliver audiobook to certain people who are the winners of that, or they got the reward, whatever it is. So that's an option as well. So again, highly recommend BookFunnel. If you are interested, check it out. BookFunnel is $20 to start. That does not collect emails, but if you are an emerging author and you just need a spot to host your ebook files and to deliver them that isn't through email, then $20 a year. If you're looking for something a little bit more specific where you can collect emails, which I highly recommend, $100 for an entire year. Money well spent if you utilize this program. So again, I really like it. Most of the clients I work with are hooked up on BookFunnel because I think it's such a great way to build your mailing list, which to me is one of the most important ways to market your book. Do libraries offer Amazon ebooks on their e-services, and do they need to be available through Ingram Spark? So no, libraries do not offer ebooks through their e-services. So I think what you're asking is, does a book from Amazon get offered to libraries? And the answer is no. And if the book is in Kindle Unlimited is an exclusive program, meaning the book can only be purchased or read through Amazon. That means that if your book's in Kindle Unlimited, it cannot be offered to the libraries through Overdrive or Bibliotheca or Baker and Taylor. So when you go into the Kindle Unlimited system, you are agreeing that you will not offer your ebook specifically to libraries through other systems. Now, if you are wide, if your book's up on Amazon, but you're not Kindle Select, you're not Kindle exclusive, you can upload your ebook another place like Ingram Spark or Draft to Digital and offer your book wide. So that's an option as well. And then but let's be clear though, if your book is exclusive on Amazon through Kindle Unlimited, it is your ebook only. You can still upload your paperback or your hardcover on Ingram Spark, so it gets into Ingram Wholesale, which libraries can order from. So when I say exclusive, the only thing that is exclusive is the ebook only. Amazon cannot do, or does not do at the moment, exclusive paperbacks. So it's just the ebook. You have opportunities for everything else. Yes, and so BookFunnel, to run back to that, I see your question, Kevin. I'll jump back to that in just a second. BookFunnel, so the different options, I'm getting questions about pricing. So the basic author line is $20, and that is not for email collections. That's simply just to upload your books and to send them out through them, which is super basic. $100 is the price that you pay if you'd like to collect email addresses. I recommend that. Now, if you have something like MailChimp or Constant Contact or something like that, and you want your emails, whenever someone downloads your book, it puts those emails immediately into the MailChimp, so you don't have to export a file and then upload it to MailChimp or Constant Contact. Email integration is an extra $50. So many people using BookFunnel will end up paying $150 a year for the service if you are collecting emails and having them go directly to your email system account, which again, I think is highly worth it if you're utilizing it. $150 a year in order to build your email list, which is one of the best sources of marketing, in my opinion, is worth it. I love this. Diane's asking, what in Taylor? Baker and Taylor. Baker and Taylor is owned by Follett, and it is a wholesaler that exclusively serves the libraries and schools. In fact, Baker and Taylor is where the majority of libraries and schools will order books from. Some will also order from places like Ingram or Brodart. Some even order from Amazon. But if we actually look at volume of orders, most schools and libraries are ordering through Baker and Taylor. You bet. Sometimes I forget. I start throwing these terms around and then we lose you. All right. And back to Kevin's question. Can I use formats as a way to get around KU's list? Kevin, I'm afraid I don't quite understand that full question as far as using formats. If you're thinking about Kindle Unlimited, again, is ebook exclusive, but you can certainly put your paperback up all over the place. Hardcover can go up all over the place. So if I missed that or I'm not quite understanding, if you could clarify, that would be really helpful so that I can help or try. I can try my best. A question that came up very recently, and has come up several times. Actually, it came up for me recently. So my email system just it's about to actually, my email server is about to upgrade or move or something. So I got an email about that, and that had me going to dig because I've seen some things recently where I've had emails go wonky. And I found out that my email server has been blocking emails from AOL. And I was talking to a group of industry friends about it, agents, publishers, people who get a lot of emails like I do. And they also agreed that AOL is an email that often gets marked as spam, and that more and more email servers are no longer accepting. One agent actually said that they look at an email from AOL and they automatically put it in the no pile because communication can be so difficult. So let me get on my soapbox just a little bit. And this is coming from a girl who still has a personal email from Hotmail, which is also outdated. If you in your author business are using email, which you probably are, whether to connect with people or other things, I highly, highly recommend that you make sure that your email doesn't, number one, date you, and that it's not causing problems with communication. I highly recommend that if, as an author, you do not have a URL specific email, you know, like Carrie@newshelves.com, if you don't have a branded email, I highly recommend that for your author business and for your communication as an author, you look into getting a Gmail. Now that can be your name at Gmail, that can be your publisher name at Gmail. I don't care, but I highly, highly recommend that you consider getting a Gmail or something more updated. Outlook is a popular one, because lots of servers are now kicking back on AOL. I think they assume that people that have AOL accounts maybe it's more spam now. And I do think it's funny because most people that I know who are celebrities, people I've been in contact with who are celebrities, who are big names, even in writing, a lot of them, their personal emails are AOL accounts, which I think is funny. I guess a lot of people don't guess them, so it makes it more convenient. However, even if you're a celebrity, may I suggest that it is time maybe to upgrade to Gmail. AOL, Yahoo's another one that's starting to get a lot of kickback. Servers they just don't like it. Yahoo, Hotmail, I know I'm part of that. I use it for my accounts though, not for actually emailing out. I use it for my accounts. Hotmail's another one that's kind of outdated. So something to consider, again, just as something that might make your life easier, to make sure that your emails are getting through and they're not getting kicked back. And also to make sure you're not dating yourself in the industry in a way that, wrong or right, many people assume that if you're using an AOL account that you're probably not very computer savvy. So that may not be true. That I understand that this is something that is stereotyping, but just like we say, don't judge a book by its cover, and yet we do. Sometimes people get judged by their emails on whether or not they will be easy to work with. So something to consider. Oh, good, good. Kevin's saying I did answer his question. So we got, yes, it only applies to the ebook. Okay. Well, I'll get off my email soapbox now that we've gone through that one. All right. Do you need a new Gmail for publishing, or can you use your personal Gmail? I always recommend to authors that they set up a Gmail account that is specific for their author and publishing business, so everything is in one spot. I recommend you set up all your accounts that way, because if your publisher account gets hacked, you don't want them to have access to all your personal stuff. If you need to get access to someone in the industry to your accounts, you don't want them having all your personal stuff. So I highly recommend that you set up an author or a publisher Gmail that is separated, that you use just for that, for your accounts, your KDP account, your Ingram Spark account. I recommend that that is what you put public facing for people to email you. Once you're, especially if a website, you have an email publicly out there, like I do for New Shelves, I get over 300 emails a day. Now, some of them are junk. I also get emails directly from the website over, and a lot of those are junk. So just keep in mind that you may want to separate your personal email as well, simply so that you can keep track of your personal emails from your author stuff. And so I have a lot of people tell me that's really helpful, and I recommend it. Treat it almost like a work email. You don't want your work and personal to necessarily cross lines there. In my very humble opinion. All right, I'm trying to fill out the form for a PCIP from Cassidy Cataloging, and there are a couple of things I don't understand. They want to know what my audience is, and if there are bisects. These are great questions, Linda. I did see your text message, by the way, but I saw it at like 3 a.m. your time and decided it would not be kind to respond to you then. Let me see if I can pull up the Cassidy catalog. So for those of you who don't know, a PCIP is a publisher's catalog and publication block. This is a block of cataloging that is used by librarians to put your book in their system. So by getting this cataloging block prior to publication, it can go on your copyright page, and it is a value added service to publishers, or I'm sorry, to librarians, because it means that they do not have to go cataloging your book before they shelve it. Now, I have heard stories from many librarians that they will sometimes order a book without a PCIP block or without a cataloging block, but that book goes in their cataloging room, and the cataloging librarian, because it takes special training, often has other duties. Those books can sit in a room for up to 2 years before they're cataloged, and they're actually put into the system so that they can be used that way. So if you really think libraries are a market for you, I highly recommend you get a PCIP block. It will make your book more convenient for the librarians to not only buy, but stock. Let me show you. Let me share my screen and let's talk about PCIP blocks. Here we go. All right, so we used to recommend Donahue Group. However, Donahue Group has gone out of business. They've retired, and now we like to work with Cassidy Cataloging. I'm very happy that some of our friends over at Donahue have moved over to Cassidy. So Tani, who I've worked with for years, is still over at Cassidy. Same great service, same great people. But anyway, PCIP, so a publisher's catalog and publication block. It looks like this. So you may have seen this on a copyright page of a book, and it's got all the information. You'll see that it's got classifications, it's got subjects or like bisects, it's got the ISBN, it's got information on the author, and so on and so forth. So not only does it end up here, but when they create this cataloging block, Cassidy will upload your information to the WorldCat system, the OCLC system. These are cataloging systems that librarians can just drop your name or your ISBN into and find your book. So they can get information right at their fingertips. So if they decide they want your book, they buy your book, they go right into the cataloging and they say, yes, I have this book now, and it goes into their shelf and they get it ready and they put it on their shelves. If you don't have that cataloging block, then they are going to have to catalog it themselves, which again, oftentimes those books are put into a cataloging room. This is done by a special cataloging librarian who has other duties, and it can take upwards of 2 years to get cataloged before it actually ends up on the shelf. And a book sitting in a room doesn't really do anyone much good. It's certainly not spreading your name as an author and your brand. It's not getting you new readers. So the PCIP block from Cassidy, there's this form. See, it tells you the following is required: title, author, city, state of publication, publisher name, ISBN, the edition, the audience, a brief summary, which is just your description, your name, company name, address, email address, phone number, blah, blah, blah. So these are the things that you will need. So when looking at this form, let's actually look at it together, and we will walk through and talk about all of the steps. And yes, if you have a traditional publisher, they will do this for you. And many small and mid-level press will do it as well, but it's something to ask about, because if your publisher is not doing this for you, you will want to make sure that you advocate for it. All right, so were you a client of the former Donahue Group Incorporated, which is DGI? Yes or no? So you want to have that in there. All right, then you need your title. And yes, this should be your final title. Then you need your author's name. Was there an editor that put together the book? Now, this is not like, hey, I had a proofreader and an editor. Not that. When we talk about editors in this instance, we're talking about someone who actually pulled the book together, that edited it. So like an anthology or something like that. So the authors, the city and state of publication, that if you are the publisher, your city and state, your publisher name. And again, I know I've spoken of this before. I highly recommend that you create your own publishing imprint name. That is the name under which you publish your books and you do publishing business. You may or may not incorporate as an LLC. That's up to you. Some people will do a DBA. And some people simply claim that publisher name and they just do business under that. And that's kind of how they brand themselves. I do have, if you go to the New Shelves website and you go to our blog and you type in publishing company, I think, if you do that, there's a whole blog on how to name your publishing company. So I won't get into that. Your copyright date. Now, this is either your copyright date according to your filed copyright or the year in which you wrote and will publish this book. So 2022 is what I would be doing. Projected publication date, the date you expect to launch, your ISBNs, and notice that they're asking for all of them. You want to make sure that you specify print ISBN, and then you list it out, ebook ISBN, and you list it out for all of your formats. Library control number, if you have one, or PCN, of Library of Congress control number, or PCN, which you may or may not have. Edition, is this the first edition? Are you doing a second edition, a special edition, whatever it may be? When it talks about your audience is typically going to be trade adult. If you are writing fiction or nonfiction, for the average adult, you are writing trade adult books. Now you may say trade adult fiction, trade adult nonfiction, up to you, but it is a trade book. If it is a children's book, then you would write children or juvenile. Now, typically, it's a children's book. If we're really breaking it down, it's a children's book up until about age 11. And then middle grade, I'm sorry, I just messed that all up. Children's book is typically until about age 8. Then we have middle grade, which is sometimes classified between 8 and 12 years old. And then young adult or teen is often from 14 to 18. So if you do have a children's book, there are some different kind of ways you can do that, or you can just classify it more generally under juvenile. That's fine. If you have a textbook, if you have a textbook or an educational book, then it would be an educational audience. However, the vast majority of you writing books for adults, it will be a trade adult book. Series, if your book's in a series, if it's not, you leave it blank. Is there an index in the back? Do you have an index where people can go and kind of use it for reference? Do you have a bibliography or reference or footnotes? Chances are you're only going to have this if it's nonfiction. And then it asks, is this a work of fiction? Yes or no? And as my husband always goes, is that real or not real? Fiction is not real, or at least it's, it's very heavily modified. So, and then please provide a brief summary. This is just like your back cover text. This is the description of your book. BISACs. BISACs are categories. And if you're having a hard time finding BISACs, we go to our old friend Google. So you can say magical realism fiction BISAC. And you know what it's going to pull us to? It's going to pull us to BISG.org. And this lovely, lovely website has a ton, I would say all, but I can't say that with confidence, but a ton of BISAC subject headings lists. So you can search different keywords, different things, and it will pull up a list of BISAC categories: fiction, general, fiction, absurdient, all of these things. And there are hundreds, but your BISAC is this number right here. That is your category. Now, what I personally do, if you're on a PC, hit Control F, and that will bring up this little search bar, and I can say magical, and it will pull up that right there. So I can say, okay, it's magical realism. So this is your category, but not an Amazon category. This is more of a trade library category. And that is what you do to find your BISAC codes. And typically the average book will have up to 3 BISAC codes. So you can do your research on that. Table of contents, introductory notes, if you like. Very often when I submit for a PCIP, I actually give them the interior and the cover files so they can see everything. Just depends on how much you need and how much you want. And then your personal information here and your website, and you can upload. So you can upload your title page because they do need that, and so on and so forth. And then you have to say you're not a robot, and then you submit. The lovely people over at Cassidy will confirm. They will get working on your PCIP block, and then once your PCIP block is done, they send it to you. They send it to you as a Word document and as a PDF document. That goes to your formatter, or if you are formatting your book, that is going to go in your copyright page. So it shows up right there in your copyright page for catalogers, and it will also show up on WorldCat, which is a library cataloging site, which is very convenient. And so you can do that there. Is going to see if I can pull up a example for you. Give me 1 second here. And I'm sure I can. I am confident. All right, let me pull up. I know I've got one right here. And I will share my screen and show you what it looks like once you do it. So I'll show you 2 things. First, I will show you what a BISAC code looks like. Well, I mean, you kind of already saw, but I'll show it to you anyway. So this is a BISAC code right here. It literally comes in this chunk of text from Cassidy. This one was done before, so it was done by the Donahue group. So it's just this chunk of text that you then will copy and paste exactly as is and put it on your copyright page. It is very important that you cannot change this text. You cannot say, I don't like the keyword they put in. I think I'll change it. That's not how it works. You are not the cataloger. So you put it in exactly as is. You're allowed to change the font and the size, but all of the spacing, the indents, they are there for a reason, and you may not change those. And what that looks like in a PDF is, drum roll please. Oops, that's a cover file. We'll eventually get there, right? Where is probably the one that says final? That would be a good guess, huh? There we go. All right, let me show you this now. Whoops. So this one, and I'll show you what it looks like actually in there. There we go. All right. So this one is Road to Breaking. So this is the first page, the title page, and then here on the copyright page, this is where we actually see it. So you can see here, it's got all the copyright information, and down at the bottom right here is our PCIP block, exactly as it was. It's just put right in there, and it's saved. That way librarians can see the book and they can easily catalog and get the book into their specific library cataloging system and get it onto the shelves as soon as possible. So hopefully that helps explain that a little bit more. All right, you guys, I know we have a couple more questions, but we've run over a little bit. I think I'm going to kind of save these. It does not need to go to the cover designer for the PCIP block, Linda. I'm going to screenshot the rest of our questions because I'm afraid we don't have time, but you can also email them to me for next week and we will sure pick them up. I'm sorry we ran out of time. It was such a great group with questions today, but thank you for joining me. Thank you for being here. And if you have questions, feel free to join us next week, same time, same place, Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern, and we will be happy to answer your questions then. I hope you have a wonderful weekend and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.